Agud v'achra boisai. Welcome. We're live in Park City, Utah, in the Park City Jewish Collective headquarters, right here. This is where it's all at. Unbelievable. Today and last night, we walked over 20 minutes. Today, we walked 20 minutes to shul in the snow. Thing is, I only brought one pair of shoes with me, like loafers, non-waterproof loafers. So the entire davening, my feet were ice. And I forgot my jacket in the airport. And it was like one of these trips. I forgot my Shabbos jacket at home. So I come to shul, I take off my coat, I'm like, what's going on? I don't have a jacket, and I don't have a tie. So I even started talking, this Stefansky went off the derech shtick or whatever, it's a whole, he's not wearing shoes during davening because of my shoes, I had to defrost my toes. My hat was Nerevayim. All these yeshivish guys are looking, yes, I'm a derech guy. All right, but anyways, there was, I don't know, there was maybe 150 people at this minyan. It's a great place to come to vacation because there's an unbelievable restaurant here, beautiful shul. We have Jewish collective, everything. It's a big zchut for me to have with us a tremendous Talmid Chacham, Shmuel Rosenfeld. We go way back. So his brother-in-law, what's your brother-in-law's name? Shelaima. His wife was best friends with my wife back in the day in Arzeh. I was very good friends with him. Your brother-in-law, what's their name again? From Farakwe, Shver. What's his Shver's name? Barry Appel. So Barry Appel's son, I was friends with him when I was like 5-6 years old, back in the day in Farakwe. So kids, we go way back. Oh, you asked if it's live. Yes, so there's 27 people right now online. Whatever that means, if that's... All right, so what a Shabbos. It snowed the ganze Shabbos. And how many? 16 No, 3 inches on the mountain to be exact. I just looked it up. I just looked it up, but okay, we can argue about it later. It's either 16 or 3. It's not a big nafkamina. All right, Rav, I just want to read email 2 here. Hi, Rebelli. This is an interesting one. And it fits in. That's why sometimes I wear the lavush like this, sometimes I go like that, because I have to talk to everyone. I started reading the Daf Yomi in late Bava Basra. I'm not yet an observant Jew. You hear this, Yona? Mayor. I describe myself as having 1 foot in each of the 2 canoes on the water, one in the secular world and one in learning, observing my Judaism. I live in Orlando, Florida, and we're the only Jews in our neighborhood. Yes, we're members of the conservative synagogue, but we're not regular attendees. My daughters had their bat mitzvahs, and my son just turned 12. He's on his way. I do my best to model for my wife and children to continue learning Torah and Judaism. I've been watching you since I started the Daf. I read the Daf through Zchariah. How do you pronounce it? So I'm sure I lose a lot in translation, which is why I watch you. Last night, I'm reading the Daf while my son was at baseball practice, and I cannot wait to hear your take on it because of the sensitive name in it. I wanted to compliment you on your sensitivity around the man in the story and understand your take based on how you handle it. Kol hakavod. I also heard an interview today surrounding the question who was responsible for the man's death. Was it the Jews? Was it the Romans? I just mentioned yesterday in Shir that there was someone wanted to bring a raya that the way he was killed was different than how the Jews do it. I'm okay with what I read in the Daf. The story of the court gave it 20. Kitzer, thank you for continuing to teach me in so many. I'll continue balancing in 2 canoes, but I definitely enjoy standing in the one you are in. L'shalom, Joshua, 8 cats. Going Mamish Michael L'choil, here's another guy. Zevi Feldman, W87, Williamsburg 87 Atzala, watching the shir while on the busy Friday dispatch shift. I don't know what they say about that little drink he had on the side. Dispatcher, I know a Cohn is not allowed to do the avodah after he drinks, but a dispatcher, okay. I hope they don't see this thing. Next. Oh, this guy, okay, I guess you can read it with me. Sally Ford Gang. So we have a WhatsApp group for daily posting done. that people say after they did the daf, done after listening to the shir, which is more than just accountability, but gives us so much chizuk and brightens my day. Especially when my 2 kids are part of the group. But today, Yair Leibowitz, the Dmar, the pest, Yiddi's brother. Yeah? Yeah, Pesteruv. So he wrote like this on the chat. Interesting story. I picked up Srulik from school yesterday, and I'm listening to Reb Eli, the latest daf, where he's at the ski mountain. And Srulik tells me he got something the Kuvit Rosh Chodesh. I asked what? He told me he got Mike and Ike's from the vending machine. I looked at him smiling. Mike and Ike's for Rosh Chodesh? Nice. Lo and behold, about 5 minutes afterwards, Reb Eli says, Rosh Chodesh, it's Rosh Chodesh today. You have to make a suda to cover Rosh Chodesh to do something special. But buy some extra food or nash to cover Rosh Chodesh. And Srulik looks at me, what? Ha, he knows. 2 seconds later, Reb Eli says, buy some Mike and Ike's. The reason why I said this is because if you look at the table, there's like a giant bag of Mike and Ike's right over there. Yeah, so that's the first thing I saw. It's not because I have Ruach HaKodesh, but that's what was in front of my thing. That's how these Ruach HaKodesh stories start. I do not have it yet. And Srulik yelling out, how does he know? Ha ha. Anyways, I thought it was interesting. He wanted to share. Good Shabbos. I hope you didn't spoil the whole Ruach HaKodesh for him. What's next? This is in Hebrew. The Seder. We're going to do the sponsors. Not too many today. 5 Mesechtas. Refuah Shelaima for Yosef Chaim Shmuel Ben Alte Nechama from his great family. Hatzlacha Beruknis and Begashmiyos. Larry Cohn, a memory of Yechiel Moshe Ben Chaim, who started learning Daf Yomi at age 70. Yes, really, it's never too late. 70. And continued for 32 years until he was nifter. For the unity of the Jewish people, and by Glenn Esterson, with love and gratitude from Wilmington, North Carolina. Thank you for enriching my life with Torah. Parnasa Chodesh, Leah Nishma Zchariah Ben Moshe, Leah Nishma Zchariah Bas Yosef, Parnasa Chodesh Zchut, Parnasa Birevach for Baruch, Tzvi, Nissim Ben Shoshana, Leah, and with הכרת from Anonymous, and Sprinzi and Alan Gross, Leah Nishma, the artists of our fathers, Shelaima Ben Yitzchak Isaac Zchariah Lebrach, and Yom and Isaac Ben Tzvi, Hirsch HaKohen, and Refuah Shelaima for Yodas and Eitan Ben Bashem Bracha. Dov Eisenberger, in honor of the Bergen Hatzalah MD Wires, the Muncie firefighters had their turn. Shirley Furman, RL 245, in honor of the 10th yahrzeit of my dear father, Harav Moshe Avram Ben Oshazeli. The art of the month for Zchut, for Belly, and the whole MD Wires staff to continue to make Torah so enjoy with so many, and in honor of Yossi Klein and Mark Ashkenazi for all the work they do. You know, I do have to mention that there are a bunch of guys in Eretz Yisrael, the editors, there's about 3-4 of them, plus Mark Ashkenazi, all these guys that are working crazy hours because I'm here in Park City, and a lot of them don't go to sleep until 3-4 in the morning because of, and they really need a special shout out. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes on behind the scenes, and when I travel, there's a lot of people that are not sleeping well. So a tremendous yishkoyach. Here we go. We're holding on Daf Memvav Amud Beis. Geshmak sugyas. Some of them are even shas sugyas. A little gory today. A lot about death and decomposing bodies. Geshmak stuff. So like 10 lines from the bottom. Iboilu. You see this? Daf Memvav Amud Beis. Hespeda. What do you guys think? The hesped. Why are we masped people? Is it for the people in the audience or is it for the dead? No. I think most of us know the answer, no? What is it? Take a stab at it. Anybody? No one wants to say? Okay, we go weiter. What do you say, Mayor? For the dead. Yeah, I think you're right. Hespeda, yikar the chayahave, or yikar the shachvehave. Is to give honor to the people, to the lives, or to give honor to the dead. The Gemara is going to say, L'maynaf Kimina. Just want to start off. From one of my favorites, Baruch Mordechai. They say that the story happened with him. I don't know, it might be somebody else. He was in the middle of being maspid someone, and he was saying, what a masmid, what a gewaldige tzaddik, mamish a chosid, leposik puma megirsa. And somebody runs over to him and says, it's the wife that died. So he says, and all this is because he has such an unbelievable wife. Anyway, so what's a hesped for? When somebody says, I don't want a hesped, Lau Gavra is referring to himself, I don't want a hesped. A lot of Gdolim, they write in the Tzava, no hespedim. So they talk about, the Piskei Tshuva says that if somebody breaks that rotzen of the gadol of his tzava, lo yifsid, he says. They say like, perhaps it's not. We're not going to be maspid. We're not going to be maspid. We're just going to do divri soirus. Don't worry about it. It's not a real hesped. But if a regular person says he doesn't want a hesped, we listen. We don't do a hesped. We're going to see soon also that no hesped is actually very good for the neshama. It gives a kapara to the person, as we'll see. Shiva, all these things, a good bezayin. That's one of the big yisayas of today's daf. A good bezayin for the dead body, for the body, is very good for the neshama. It's excellent. Inami, lapukim yarshim. So they used to hire these people to give a spadim. So if it's a covered for the dead, then we could be mechayiv the yarshim. We tell the yarshim, you have to pay for this. This is part of the funeral expenses. But if it's for the yarshim, they say, no, we don't want this. Tashma. So we have like literally 9 rayas. The Gemara, finally at the end, on the 9th one, we're gonna come to the conclusion that it's for the dead. Tashma. Avram came, he traveled a distance. Where did he come from exactly? He came from the Akedah, from Hara Maria. He had to go all the way to Hebron. It's quite a distance, even today. I don't know how long, with the donkey, whatever it is, it takes some time. And if it's to give covet for the living, what? Because to give covet for Avram and then to associate Avram with Sarah and say, look, he was married to one of the greatest of all time, to Sarah, to give him that covet. So that's why we're going to do halana of a mace. We're going to leave the dead just waiting there, decomposing outside for hours, maybe even overnight. Says Gemara, Sarah gufa nichala. That's not a good raya, because she wants Avram. She would like the covet that Avram gets through her. The famous Maisa with Reb Shneir and Yaakov Kamenetsky, they came into one of these giant halls. I don't know what it was. It was some big event. And Reb Shneir with his Anava, talking about, we have Aaron Kotler here. It's a big part of the community. He lives here. He has a house here. And he said he'll come to the shir one of these days. I know his son wants to come. We'll get him. One of these days we'll get him. So Reb Shneir, who's a big Anav, he said, let's go through the back door so that nobody has to stand up for us. And Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said, no. Our wives go through a lot. Being a gadol, people knock on the door at all hours of the day, and you're always away, and you barely see your family. Saif, once every so often, she's in the audience, and she's going to see how the whole place stands up for us. That'll give her a geschmack. We'll have a covet for me, but it will be through her. She'll also get the covet. Tashma. V'savduloi kol Yisrael. We're going back to Aviyah. We spoke about him the other day. He's the son of Yeravam ben Avat. The whole family was rotten, but he was a good person, and he had a schos that he had a kvura, he had a hesped. It says v'savduloi kol Yisrael v'kavru oisei. Yeah, it happens to be said all the way in the beginning of the Masechta that Sanhedrin has most of the stories of Navi. Go through a lot of the stories. Even today, we're going to have a bunch of different stories. But if it's for the living, the whole family was rotten. They didn't deserve a kvura. They didn't get a hespedim. They're nothing. Yeravam, he put Avodah Zarah throughout Klal Yisrael. His kids were all no good. So why would I want to give them covet? Says Gemara, no, not a raya. A tzaddik, Aviyah, he has himself hana, that his family, even though they're no good, that they get hana. That's his hana. Tashma, lo yisafdu v'lo yikaveru. We're talking about the people of Anasais. So they don't get a hesped, they don't get a kvura. So you see that the hesped has to do with the dead, not the living. No. They don't want a living person doesn't want to get any covet through the Rasha. Toshma. It says that Yirmiyah told Tzidkiah, B'sholem Tamus, you're going to die in peace, a peaceful death. And this is the point that we're looking for. They're going to say at your hesped, they're going to make a nice hesped. Don't worry, Tzidkiah. You're going to get a great hesped. Now, if a hesped is for the living, what does Tzidkiah care that they're going to say this, that, and that? So you see that the hesped is for the dead. Last line on the bottom. No, Yirmi is telling Tzidkiah that you should know that Klal Yisrael is gonna give you a lot of covet afterwards. Just like your forefathers, they got covet, so too you. Toshma. Nivze bein of nimas. So I want to show you these psukim here for a second. Oh, what's this? Oh, hold on, I wasn't paying attention. This one. Stop, pause. You see this guy? Right now, Manas and Flatbush watching you on YouTube Live. Big turnout. Nice. Cool. More people over there than here. Listen, it's nice. There's no skiing now. That's why Friday was a little shmach. Okay, shmach. Shalom Aleichem. Akiva Ziegler. Cool. Okay. This is what I wanted to show you. These psukim. It says, so the David HaMelech says, look, who is going to dwell in your tent? And it says like this, a person who goes tamim upoil tzedek v'doiver emes, he talks truth, he doesn't do bad to his friend, he doesn't talk lashon hara, and then in Pasuk Dalet it says, nivza be'einav nimas, a person who puts himself down, a bezayin be'einav nimas, disgusting, makes himself, he belittles himself. So says the Gemara, now that we know this is a person that David HaMelech says, miyagur b'halecha. That's where he starts off. Who's going to dwell in the tent? So says the Gemara, top line on Mem Zayim and Amud Aleph. Nivze be'einav nimas, zeh Chizkiyahu melech Yehuda, the famous story, Chizkiyahu was a tzaddik, but his father, Achaz, was a rasha. Shegir atzmis aviv al mita, it seems like his father's, it was already bones, it wasn't the body. He took his father's bones, bibiz zayin, on a almita shel chavalim, on a bed of rope. Why would Chizkiah do this if it hurts the living? If these kind of things hurt the living, why would he do it? Obviously, it's to hurt the dead, to give his father a little kapara. Says no, it's really for the living. But it gives the father a kapara. We have to understand, if this does good or bad for the living, so how does it have any effect on the dead? Why would it give the dead a kapara? That's exactly what we're asking. Is the hesped good for the dead, not good for the dead? Is the bezayin good? So they say, no, enochanami. The string thing is not such a kapara for the dead, according to this. Just what? Because people are going to see it and they're going to do tshuva. And that tshuva, this iris for tshuva that comes through Achaz the Rasha, that will be a kapara for Achaz. But to give a kapara to the father, so that's why you're going to give a tsar for Klal Yisrael. Says Gemara, Yisrael Klal Yisrael's moichel and wants that Achaz should get a kapara. Toshma. It's talking about Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, the author of the Mishnah. He said right before he died, he said, Omar Lahem, Altis Bedurim Bayaris. Don't do a hesped in the small cities. And if you say that has to do, it gives honor to the living, my life Kamina. What do you care if there's a hesped in a small place? Only larger space, full auditoriums I want. I don't want any small city things, any little villages, no, only the big places. What do you care? Let them do a hesped. Let them give cover to the. If it has nothing to do with Rebbe, it has to do with the people. So let them do a hesped anywhere the Aron goes. Let them do a hesped. No, if the smaller cities would go to the larger auditoriums and fill up massive stadiums, like These levayas, Rabbi Yosef had a levaya, 1 million people. So it's a covet for the people. Forget the mace. People say, wow, look at this, where 1 million people came to be Mechaber. Toshma, Helinu l'chvoidai. So that, what does this have to do with our sugi? This whole thing has to do because it's here, the Mishnah. It says in our Mishnah that if you leave the mace overnight, but it's for his honor, to bring a coffin or tachrichim, you're not over the deraisa. So what's the honor? The honor is for who? The simple pshat in the Mishnah is my lab. You're trying to honor the dead by bringing him a nice aron and tachrichim. He says no. It's still not a raya. Why? Because you could be doichik and say loy l'chvaydish l'chai. It's a great honor for the living that you have such a beautiful aron, nice tachrichim, or tachrichim period. Says Gemara, mishum chvaydish l'chai, mavis le meis, mivis mavis. It's a lashon, says Rashi, of halana. So to give honor to the children, oh look at our father, they have such a nice aron. So you're gonna leave him overnight or 3 days to find the aron? That doesn't make sense. Where did we learn yesterday? The Isser to leave any human overnight. It's a problem, right? In Yerushalayim today, in Yisrael, the makbet to go really quick with the Levi. Sometimes they don't even wait for family members. Where do we learn? From From the person that's Chayv Misa, you're not supposed to let him hang on the tree. Or on the wood, we should say, not the tree. Dumya the Tali, this baby Zayin. So it's similar to that guy that's hanging. How does he hang? The problem is the bizayin. He's hanging in front of everybody, unclothed, hanging from a piece of wood. This guy's in a refrigerator somewhere in a morgue. It's not a bizayin. So to give cover to the kids, it's okay. Toshma. If they didn't bury him, why? To give him honor, so that other cities could hear about it. Oh, we have a geschmack picture of Mekoinenais. I saw it somewhere. This is gewaldig. So they used to hire these ladies. First of all, they used to hire maspidim. They would hire ladies to scream and cry, make a whole matzav. Yeah. Today we bring a guy with a guitar that knows how to sing well. You make a matzav. So it takes time to organize this. You're not over in halana. Over here, it's harder to be doichik. It says mefurish, you're doing this for the honor of the dead. It doesn't say the honor of the living, the honor of the dead. So we have to say, okay, Nechama will be doichik. Harika amar. Again, anytime the Gemara does this, so it's just saying, look, I can't prove it. It's not concrete proof. Yeah, you're right. It's a tchak, but you don't have a perfect raya. Harika amar. We're obviously talking about, according to this sheet, that we're talking about honor of the living, not the honor of the dead. So we're trying to say, anytime you're trying to honor the mishpacha by getting a mekainonais, getting a tachrichim, then that is not a bezayin for the dead. And this l'chayra is the final one, and this is a good one. And this is very, very important to remember. I think it's very important to remember this. If you only come out with one thing from the shir, it should be this Gemara. Because it's nagel and mais, it's nagel in a lot of different situations. It says like this. Simin yafal mais. You know what's a nice omen, a nice simin for the dead? When they do him in after he dies. Meis shalei nispad. There's no espedim. Yeah, he's buried 5 minutes before Shabbos. It happens every area of Shabbos in Yerushalayim. You see them running to the Beis HaKfaros and run back. No espedim. That's great. V'lo nikbar. We have lo yaleinu. First of all, we have in what happened to us in the concentration camps and all that stuff. A lot of people weren't zochet to kvura. But even nowadays, we have with the terrorism and the hostages, people lo nikbar. You have those people that they're missing already for many, many years, the pilots or whatever. So you tell the mishpacha, look, it's good for the neshama. V'lo nikbar. Or shechaya gorartoi. Or an animal got rid of him. Or shahayig shamim bizalfin al mitasoi. This is mamish, middle of a funeral, and all of a sudden it starts raining. In Eretz Yisrael, there's no aron. There's just, the body's there with the talus. It's a bezoin to the mace. You know what? It's geschmack. The bezoin is very good for the mace. It's good for him. Don't be upset about it. It's good. So I'm saying it's negel and maisa. Refuah Cohn says in one of his books, he says the maisa should be gesund and stark. He says that he was at a levaya, and after the levaya, they started giving out hot chocolate. She says, "What's going on here?" He wasn't happy about it. I said, "What's a pasnish at a levaya?" Yeah.
The Gemara says that you can tell how great a person was by the hesped and by the crying at the levaya.
Yeah.
So here the Gemara seems to be saying that not having a hesped is a sin in Taiblamis. It's in Yosef.
It's two different things. I think it's two different things. 100%. When they say a good hesped, then you see that this person is a great person, and you have to be masped. We have chiyuvim. There's halacha to be masped. Just in the case that there's no hesped, you should know that it's a kapara for the body. Look, we're not saying that you should go and poke the body with spears and this is great for the body. But if that happens, if it happens, they drag the body in the street. You should know that's a tremendous kapara. Then the neshama doesn't have to go through X amount of Gehenim. We had in the Gemara the other day, Ein Tzadik Bar Tzesher Lo Yechta. Even Avram Avinu, it's talking about the Avos HaKadoshim. Why are they buried? Why do they go through? Because everybody needs a kapara. It's better to get a kapara in this world, not having a hesped, not having this, than to have it in the next world. Obviously, the normal way is to give a hesped and say how great the person is. You'll see from there that he's a great tzaddik. I don't think it's a stira. But Akopanim, Refuah Cohn says, so what's going on here with the chocolate? Hot chocolate at levaya. So before he had a chance to make him a cha, sort of, I don't know if he's not the type of guy, but it bothered him. He wanted to say something about it. Then he heard somebody saying, look, the mace, he was very concerned that if he dies on a very cold day, the people are going to come to Levi and they're going to be, they're going to feel uncomfortable. So he wrote and says, please, if I die on a cold day, which it was a very cold day, please serve some hot chocolate. He says, okay, that's all the mace cared about. He's a nice guy and he cared about the people there. There's one of my favorite baby jokes. Mine was a dumb joke, but it just triggered the jokes. I got to tell you, it's not so. It's more for the Israelis than for the Americans. But if you know, you know. And I saw they have this choco. It's like in a choco. And it's in a little bag, and you poke a hole and you drink it. So this unaffiliated woman, she's trying to arrange the funeral for her husband. And the Yerushalmi guy says, "You want choco?" She says, "How much is choco?" He says, "It's 200 shekel for choco." So she says, "Okay, listen, another 200 shekel, another 200 shekel." So during the levaya, she says, "No, where's the choco?" He says, "Oh, yeah, you're right." He goes, "Choco chamo batzorayim." He did a choco chamo batzorayim. Okay, givaldik. Okay, Zog the Gemara. No, it's not like I was thinking about the story about Refuah. Hot chocolate, choco cham b'tzorayim, givaldik. Maybe that's what the guy meant to say choco cham b'tzorayim, and then they ended up serving hot chocolate. So it says like this. Oh, did I say shmamino? You call it the shachviu shmamino. So you see from here that all these things, these are terrible things that happen to the mace, and it's good. It's a simin yof for them. It's great for the mace. So you see that the hesped is for the dead and not for the living. Now we continue the next sugya, brand new sugya. It says in Mishnah, you don't take somebody that was killed with one of the four Mises Bezdin, you don't bury him with his mishpacha. Why? And now we're going to go into the Gemara because you don't put a Russia next to a tzaddik. So what you do is, first you bury him. They had two basic kvaras. The Bezdin had two basic kvaras, one for Sreif and Skila, one for Saif and Chenek, and they would bury them there, and then they would take the body out. They put it in like the cave, and then when the body was decomposed, only in bones, then they would take the bones, that the body had a kapara, then they were able to bury it with the mishpach. Says Gemara, why do you have to go through all this stuff? Says Gemara, Lefi she'ein kovim rasha etzel tzaddik. You don't put a rasha next to the tzaddik. I saw somebody, I forgot who wrote, that the tzaddik gets like different things in the caver, like they tell him different things that are going on in Shemayim, and they won't tell him because his neighbor is going to hear. So he's going to miss out on all these things. One shot. Domer Rabacha Bar Chanina, Menayin Shein Korbim Rasha Tzadik. Say Moshe Sternbuch, he came to South Africa, and there's a big tumult going on. So there's all the Mechali Shabbos. There's a lot of Litvish mishpachas that came there, and they started being Mechal Shabbos. And they said, you can't be buried in the regular basic forest. They made a whole tumult. What do you mean we can't be buried? We want to be buried there. So he told them, listen. He gave them a speech. He says, Loyal Mahemes, they're going to come to you and say, why are you Mechal Shabbos? So you're going to say, it was very tough in South Africa. So yeah. Look, the guy that's buried right next to you, he's not Mechal Shabbos. This guy's not Mechal Shabbos. I mean, it's very tough. He also lived in South Africa, like you. He's not Mechal Shabbos. I'll tell you what, make yourself your own plot for all the Mechal Shabbos. When they ask you why Mechal Shabbos, say, look, everybody around me, they're all Mechal Shabbos. It won't be such a kitrug. So the Makabal said, that's what he said, the Makabal is his svara. Menayin shein koivrim rasha l'tzadik. Shenemar, vayihem koivrim ish. V'neiros hagdud. So another story in Navi. So according to Rashi, we're talking about the Navi Sheker that caused a lot of issues over there with Ido, with because of him, the lion came and ate him, the whole thing. So this Navi Sheker dies. They take the Navi Sheker and they're doing a levaya for him. All of a sudden, they see the enemy coming towards them. The Plishtim, they didn't know what to do. So they took the body, tossed it into Elisha's cave. And they ran away. So he's tumbling through the cave, and he hits the bones of Elisha. This dead guy hits the bones of Elisha. He wakes up. He has tchis hamesim. He looks around. He sees he's next to bones. He gets scared. He jumps up and runs out. Oh, so you see from here, why did he have tchis hamesim? Let him just be buried there. So you see from here that a Rasha doesn't get buried next to a tzaddik. That's the riot. Elisha asked Eliyahu Hanavi that he should have double than Eliyahu Hanavi. That if Eliyahu Hanavi did Tchias HaMesim once, I won twice. So we know that Elisha did Tchias HaMesim once. Anybody remember where Elisha did Tchias HaMesim? Yeah, by the Ben Shunamis. Very good. So, but we don't see anywhere else that he did Tchias HaMesim. So this is the second time to be Mekayim in the pasuk that he did Tchias HaMesim twice. But it's not because you can't bury a tzaddik, a Rasha next to the tzaddik. Nothing to do. Who's told you? Just because to do a little Tchias HaMesim. The problem is this guy, because he's a Navi Shek, he's a Rasha, he was Zchut Tchias HaMesim for 10 seconds. He got up and ran out. Which reminds me of a story. It's one of these stories that made a tremendous reshim on me. There was a firefighter who was on a roof fighting a fire, and the roof caved in, and he lost consciousness, and he was comatose for like maybe 10 years. He was in a coma. It's one of these stories, like all of a sudden a guy wakes up. One day, I think it's 10 years later, they wrote a book about it. I think somebody told me it's not MS at then. Don't ruin the story. It's a very good story. 10 years later, he wakes up. They bring the kid, like he had a 2-year-old, they bring him, now the kid is 12, the whole thing. He had no idea who the presidents, since he was there, there's 3 different presidents. Oh, Maisa. He's able to go home. He goes home, and the first night home, he falls out of the bed, because he was weak. He falls out of his bed, breaks his neck, and dies. So it's just reminding me, just another trigger thing. So this guy, he had his Zchut Tchias HaMesim, but only for 10 seconds. This guy finally comes out of the coma, and they forgot that he's not a regular person. He's been in a coma, and he tumbled out of his bed and dies. Anyway, so he comes out of his Tchias HaMesim, and he jumps up. So that's not considered Tchias HaMesim. Elisha wanted 2 Tchias HaMesim. It's not a Tchias HaMesim that lasts for 10 seconds. Elo, so how do you know that you can't bury Rosh Hashanah tzaddik? Vayino pishnayim. So if according to this, where was the second time that Elisha did 2 Tchias HaMesim? Naaman, the general, he had tzaras, and he gave him we all know that there's a few things that, suma choshev kameis. One of the things that's considered dead is somebody that has tzaras. Shishkula kameis, the chsiv, I'll know, see kameis. Aaron Cohn says about Miriam, Rebbeinu Shalom, please don't make her like a dead person. That means tzaras is like you consider like you're dead. So because he healed him from the tzuras, that was his second Tchias HaMesim. I saw a Mordik Chasam Sofer today that Baruch Shekivanti, because I had this ha'ara when we were learning this. It was just a couple of weeks ago, not even within 2 weeks or so, maybe even less. I'll tell you the beginning, and you tell me what you have to say. They asked Chasam Sofer that there was a guy that got killed by a goy. The Gemara says, we just learned here in Sanhedrin, that even though there's no Sanhedrin and we don't have Daled Mises Bezdin, but the Daled Mises Bezdin continue till today. So if somebody's chayiv skila, he'll get skila. So they say, this guy that got killed by a goy, l'chayra, he was punished because he was over in some isser that he deserves Daled Mises Bezdin. Can we bury him in the regular Beis HaKvaros? It's a shocking question, no? It's not a nice question. Why not? So what do you think that some Sofer said? And Baruch Hashem, I said this in the Shir a few days ago. I don't know when. Says some Sofer, no, you got it wrong. Somebody that's chayiv misa bebezdin, he will get killed by a goy. But somebody that's killed by a goy doesn't mean that he's chayiv misa bebezdin. That's why I said then, if you remember, I said not everybody that's killed in a car crash, he's chayiv skila. So his chayiv skila is going to get killed in a car crash. He says, oh, look at this guy. Oh, you deserve it. The snake bit him, so he's chayiv sreifa. It doesn't work like that. Don't start playing HaKadosh Baruch Hu here. But Baruch Hashem, I found it today in the Chasam Sofer. Mamish like that. It's a great line. Says the Gemara. Oh. Now, every Rosh is on a different madrega. So therefore, as the Gemara, is here. So if you remember, all we need to do is really look at the left side, the Tanakama. This is the way it goes. Skila is the worst. Okay, something that's Avodah Zarah, Chil Shabbos. Sreifa is second to worst. Sayif, Hereg is third. Chenek is on the bottom. A guy that did a simpler Aveira, the Gemara says this. There's the different levels of Aveiras. So a guy that did a simpler Aveira, this chayiv chenek should not be buried next to the guy that did something that's chayiv sayif. Certainly not a guy that did skil. So we said, okay, skil and streifer in one basic kvaris, hereg and chenek in another basic kvaris. But even within the two, skil and streifer, there should be different basic kvaris. So there should be four. Says Gemara Shnei Kvaris, Gemara Gemir Law, it's halacha l'Moshe ben Sinai that there's two basic kvaris for the bezdin. That's it. Don't ask any questions. Arma Ula, Omer Rabbi Yochanan, Ochal Chelev v'hifrish Karbon v'hemer data. Geschmack. First of all, this is Rabbi Avram Weisfish from England. He sent in this picture of every time we do a sugya, he sends in, this is a piece of chelev. Piece of chelev, also to eat this thing. A guy eats the chelev, b'shoigeg, and he puts aside a carbon, chatos, and then he goes off the derech. Whatever it means, he went off the derech. So this is a sugya of dichui. Okay, so we had it a few times in Shas. At the time when he was no longer, whatever you want to call it, I say off the derech, people don't like that lashon. Too bad. Whatever, we understand what it means. Okay, he became a mummer. At that point, he's not allowed to bring a carbon. It's also for him to bring a carbon. We won't accept this carbon. So Memela was dachoy, was pushed off, and then he does tshuva. So what's the halacha? There's 3 Yidden walking by a church, and they see a big sign there. You become Christian, we give you $50,000 today. So Yankel says, times are rough, and anyways, I wasn't so sure about the whole thing, so let me try it out. So he goes inside, and half hour later, his friends are still waiting, and he comes out like dressed differently and everything. His hair is wet. And he says, "No, Yankel, so how much money did they give you?" He says, "You Jews, that's all you think about. It's money, money." He became whatever he became, a mummer. The chazar ba, and then he does tshuva. So that's the sugya of Nira, Nitcha, Nira. We could have also said Dochimi Kara, that he was not on the, he was a mummer to begin with, whatever. But Kitzer, it was a good carbon. There's a point in time where it was no good, and then he did tshuva, he cannot bring it. Itmanami, same exact case, and we have to see what's the difference in the case. Same thing, he ate chaylev and he put a carbon, but instead of going off the derech, v'nishtata. He became crazy. He went crazy. V'chazav v'nishtapa. Then he had a refuah shleima. Hayel v'nitcha yidacha. Again, when he was a shaita, you can't bring the carbon. So therefore, it's pushed off forever. You can no longer bring the carbon. Says the Gemara, I need both cases. If I just say the case where he went off the derech, he did it with his own will. But this guy that became a shaita, it wasn't willfully, wasn't willingly. So perhaps he's like a sleeping person. Seems like there's a machlokes Rashi and Tosfos here. Rashi doesn't say mafurish. It's mashma Rashi that a sleeping person cannot bring a carbon, which is a pella. Tosfos doesn't like it. He says he doesn't even bring Rashi like that. So that's why I don't know if that's what Rashi learns. But he says no, it's impossible. Why can't you bring a carbon of a sleeping person? He just says it means to say that obviously if that was the issue, if Yoshan was the issue, then it wouldn't be that big of an issue because everybody wakes up eventually and he'll be conscious, fully conscious. The point is, I would think that this guy is like a Yoshan, like a sleeping person. No. If I would just say the case of a shaita, a shaita cannot decide whenever he wants to become a non-shaita. But by a person that goes off, he could become a nice yid whenever he feels like it. So maybe it shouldn't be pushed off. Tzricha. It's any both cases. I'll prove it to you from another place. We're talking about a Irani Dachas, a city that everybody does have a rive of the city does have a desire. Kachim Mizbeach Yamusu, Kachim Bedekabayis Yipadu. The two types of Kachim, Kachim Mizbeach are karbanos, things that go on top of the Mizbeach, a mincha, a carbon, all these things. So they have inherent Kedusha, they themselves are Kadosh. And Kachim Bedekabayis are things that were donated to the upkeep of the Beis HaMikdash. So if it's a Kachim Mizbeach, they must die. So you come into this Irani Dachas, everything gets burnt. Everything, the money, everything gets burnt. But you have an issue. You have an animal here. And on the animal, there's a big sign. This is a carbon chatas. So what are you going to do now? It's not the cities. It's not owned by the city. Why? Because it's the Beis HaMikdash. So put it on Mizbeach. You can't put it on Mizbeach. Why? Because it's Tayeva. So let's see Rashi inside for a second. If you want, you can look on the screen. Says Rashi, Hoy Bakachim, Birevach, Zanim Sarvim Im Shlala, you don't burn it with everything else. The Chsiv Shlala, V'lo Shlal Shomayim. This is not owned by them, it's owned by Shomayim. Umi Mikrev Lekarvo, but you can't bring it on the Zbeach, Moshin Chsiv, Zevach Rishayim Toyeva. This is a carbon of a Rasha. Don't put it on, it's Toyeva. It's, how do you say disgusting in a nice way? Abomination. Thank you. Vim Kachim Izbeachem, Afil Yishlamim, Nidava, Yamusu. They literally, you don't feed them, you don't do anything, let them die. But Koche Bedekabayis, that's different. If a guy from Irani Dachas donated an animal for the upkeep of the Beis HaMikdash, then you don't have the pasuk of Zevach Risham Toeva. It's not a Zevach. So interesting, even though you would think, oh, it's disgusting, it's money from a Ovid Avodah Zarnik. Nevertheless, you could redeem it and you give the money to the Beis HaMikdash. And the Gemara asks, question, why should they die? Kivin Iktul, a bomb kasha. So these questions are going to narrow down where exactly is the kapara when a person dies. There's different steps. So step number one, if you kill the people from the Irani Dachas, so they should have an immediate kapara. If they have immediate kapara, then why can't we bring their karbanos on the Mizbeach? Kivin the iktul havilu kapara. They should get a kapara velisku legavaya. You can put it on the mizbeach. Lamishum damrinon hoyel v'nitchu yidachu. Says Rav Yosef, I have a mardik araya. The reason why you can't bring these karbanos on the mizbeach These are big tzaddikim now. I don't know tzaddikim, but they're not Rishonim anymore because you killed them. And that the misa is a kapara. The reason why, sorry, I should take that off. Somebody remind me if I don't, because I don't have my peoples that remind me. And we're running late. So the reason why, now we have 58 people on YouTube. That's crazy. Very nice. Okay. Shalom Aleichem, all the people on YouTube. You see, we're here in Park City, Utah. And there's 58 people around the world. Who knows where? In Monasterich. Well, first, it's more than 58 people. It's one, Monasterich is a bunch of people. That's one screen. But okay. So, says the Gemara like this. It's a raya that you say this concept of dichui. That what? Did I show you this thing? Dichui. I did show it. But it's a musig in Shas that we don't have all the time. The reason why I can't bring this kapara is because for one moment they were no good. They were ovdei avodah zarah. Today it is good. Why? Because we killed them, but it's too late. It's pushed off. Once it's pushed off, you can't bring it on the mizbeach. What do you think? If a guy dies as a rasha without doing tshuva, he has a kapara. He doesn't have a kapara. The Tani Rav Shmaya. So Cohn is allowed to be metama to his relatives. But what if his father went off the derech? The famous halacha, this father is not a oisim ma'aseh amcha. He was doing averis, and therefore the Cohn doesn't have the right to be metama to him. Wait a minute. But he died. And after you die, you get a kapara. So you see that even after the death, there's no kapara. Amalei Rava, what? You should all ask this question right away. This is a guy that died. There's a difference between a guy that dies naturally in his bed, that he does not get a kapara, and a guy from Iran Idachas that we kill him. Bezdin kills him. That killing is a kapara. Amalei Rava, Mikam Damas, Nerag Mitoch Rishoy, Lemeis Mitoch Rishoy. One is killed, which has a kapara, and one dies, which doesn't have. He dies natural death. He doesn't have kapara. But a guy that dies as a rasha, he gets killed as a rasha. Since it's not natural, kapara. So since he has a kapara, so let's go back to what Rabbi Yosef's Zchut is. This guy had a kapara. This ovdei avodah zarah from Iran Dachas, he had a kapara. So then why can't you bring his carbon? Obviously because it's dichui, it was pushed off. The carbon should be a good carbon, but there's a concept called dichui. Once I push it off for 5 minutes, you can't bring it anymore. We had a halacha, for instance. If the mizbeach, let's say, I come to the Beis Hamikdash with the carbon, I'm about to say, no, you can't bring it. What are the stones that the mizbeach fell off? Mizbeach is possible. So then they come, they bring the repairman, they put it back in, can't bring the carbon anymore. Dachui, finished. Once you push it off, it's pushed off forever. In the Sefer B'chol Nafshecha, if you want to look it up, because you're going to be upset about what I'm about to tell you, it's page Shinayin Ches. He brings Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. You know, we always say that people from the Shoah, people that went through the Holocaust, they were nifter al Kiddush Hashem. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, he says, it's not Kiddush Hashem. Kiddush Hashem is when they come to you with a gun and say, if you go off the derech, if you become a Christian, whatever it is, I won't kill you. But if you don't, you stay Jew, then that's Kiddush Hashem. You say, kill me, Kiddush Hashem. He says, no, in the Shoah, they killed everybody. They killed Kaifrim, they killed religious and non-religious equally. Nothing to do. They killed everybody. That's not Al Kiddush Hashem. You do get a kapara, because it's a non-natural death, he says. But don't call it Kiddush Hashem. Machlokes, I'm just saying, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Yeah, obviously. Okay. I'm sure everything has machlokes. Yeah.
People in the Shoah that dance into the gas chambers, they're going to aid, and he said, I don't know if I'll be able to get to where they are.
Of course. Yeah. I don't know that Shlomo Zalman argues on that. Al Kiddush Hashem. I hear it. Okay. Good. We'll go with that because most people are going to be very upset. But I only like to say things that trigger people. If it didn't trigger, if the shkoyach, Kiddush Hashem, everybody says Kiddush Hashem. I'm saying it's not Kiddush Hashem. Oh, what are you talking about? It's a fancy mishul. Let me take out my email. They're writing. Right now, people are writing emails. That's what we need as we talk. Okay. Huh?
What about a soldier today and it doesn't come? I want to trigger.
Yeah. We spoke about that also. I spoke about it. Soldiers, not so, a guy. But the reason why the killing is because of the Yidden. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah, the terrorist for sure. According to Shlomo Zalman doesn't care. Adarabi kills from, non-from. Everybody's equal. Adarabi sometimes they prefer not from. Zog the Gemara. Teida. I'll bring you a raya. 4 lines from the bottom. The Chsiv Mizmer Lasaf. Elokim bo goyim benachlosecha. Here, the goyim came into your territory. They took the bodies of your slaves, your avodim, your yidden. They gave it food to the birds, and then it uses another lashon, besar chasidecha l'chayse yaretz, and the flesh of your chasidim. Says Gemara, my avodecha, my chasidecha. In those days, there's no chasidim in Litvax. You couldn't say, oh, it means this. A yid is a yid. What's avodecha and chasidecha? Lav chasidecha mamish. A chasim means somebody does lefnim mishur sadin, and avodecha hanach de mechayv dina de mikara. Oh, eved means somebody that was chayv misa in bezdin. The kibin de iktul, and once we kill him, kol avodecha. Then he's called the eved. Abayo mikom damis daf memzayin Amud Beis. Hold on, I have to put this back over here somewhere. What do we got here? Yeah. So now he says another nafkamina. There's a difference between, in a second. There's a difference between someone who is killed by a goy. It could be also some say it's not dafka. Rashi says the Umas Ha'olam, Mother Rishonim say that it's any kind of king. Let's say David HaMelech kills somebody. It's still not bezdin. And there's a difference between laharugi bezdin. Harugi malchus, given the shloit b'din komiktele, have the kapara. Oh, David HaMelech is the wrong example. But let's say you have a chveis, achaz, I don't know who, kills somebody. It doesn't have dafka mean a Jew, a guy. It could be also a Jewish king that just killed somebody because he felt like it. That's those Rishonim. Since it was shloikadin, it was against halacha, against the reason, so you get a kapara for that. Harugi bezdin, even the bedin komiktali, lo, you have a kapara. Oh, so in Mela, they don't get a kapara. If they don't get a kapara, that means they remain Rushaim. So what the Gemara is trying to say here is, if they remain Rushaim, so now we have to switch the reason. What's the reason they didn't bring a carbon of a ir and idachas? Not because dichui, because they remain Rushaim. We just said, you don't get a kapara if you get killed through a bezdin. Why? Why did you get killed in bezdin? Because you did avodah zara. You don't get the kapara. And if you don't get the kapara, then that's why it can't bring you carbon. It's zevach Rushaim ta'eva. But not because of dichui. So we're pushing off Rav Yosef's pshat according to this. Turning into the daf, Shvat is, oh boy, just jumped here. I don't know why. Okay. In honor, in honor of a president official, where is he? Was he in this room? He came before. I don't know where he is. Shidduch for Rivka Yudis Bas Yavachaya, and thank you to Rebbe Stefansky. And by Adar Global, experts in international financial services, and anonymous. L'schus, Refuah Satino Yecheskel Yedidyo Ben Nechama Shendel Refuah Shelaima. Zog the Gemara. Teida, the Snan. It says in our Mishnah that after they kill somebody that's chayiv misa with a bezdin, you don't bury him together with his forefathers. So it's beautiful how the Gemara goes step by step. So over here the Gemara proves that misa alone is not a kapara. Because if misa alone was a complete kapara, why can't you take this guy that we just hung, we gave him skila, we hung him, he had a kapara, now bury him with his family. Why do you have to bury him in the special bezdin cemetery and only later on bring the bones? Says the Gemara, no, misu kvura be'inan. You need, in order to get a kapara, and this is step one, we're not even there. At the end, the Gemara is going to say you need misa, kvura, and a little bit of decomposing of the body. But you need not just the death, the kvura also gives a kapara.
This for everyone, for every mix, or just for the best?
No, there's two different things. The Bezdin, the guy was a Rasha. So to remove the name Rasha, you need Misa, Kvura, and like we don't see. But let's say a regular Yid, obviously this gives kapara. Everything is a step in kapara. We all need kapara. You need kapara for Lashon Hara, but not a Rasha.
So that's what I'm saying. How come yesterday we were saying Kvura is a minute? This should show you that Kvura is a minute.
No. We were trying to find, okay, first of all, that doesn't mean anything. Like I said before, even we're trying to find the makar for Kvura in the Torah. We couldn't come up with a great makar. There is, the little bit of a cover to Kberenu, but still, it doesn't mean that you need it. Like everything else, there's different yisurim that the body goes through without Kvura. So just because you go through that yisurim doesn't mean you have to do it. Everything is added kapara, whatever it is. Let's say it rains on the body, it's kapara. So you're going to say, oh, you have to pour water on the body? No. If it happens to rain, it gives a kapara. If you happen to bury the body, it gives a kapara. It doesn't mean you're mechuyev to bury. Still not a raya from here. Mizuk vurabina. Moiser Ravada Barahava. So ask Ravada Barahava, right? Somebody that dies from Mises Bezdin, you're not allowed to sit Shiva. Shenaninos ela belev. Because, you can't do Shiva, but you could be sad in your heart. Why? Because it's in your heart. You just told me you need death and burial. That's the kapara. Okay, so once there's death and burial, so now you could sit Shiva. Why can't they sit Shiva? Liyablu. There's one more step. Being a nami equal basar. You need the body to decompose. I just looked it up tonight. Like, when does the body start decomposing? Immediately. But it means like geschmacka amount, not just a scientific amount. So, it's not such geschmacka. It's a little gory, this Gemara. In fact, you see from our Mishnah that once the body completely decomposes and all you're left with is bones, then the body had a full kapara and you could bury the body with its relatives. It's not a Russian next to the tzaddik. It's a regular person next to the tzaddik, and that's okay. Shema mino. So the bottom line is, where does the body get a complete kapara? Death, kvura, and decomposing. Ravashi Omar, avelus me'mosakom matchila mistimas hagoylo. So a goylo, depends how you learn here. Check this out. Oops, I should have shown you this. So let me go like that. Goylo. What's goylo? Wow. This mom is running late here. So the goylo is the top part. So Rashi talks about the doifek being, like in Eretz Yisrael, if you ever went to Levi in Eretz Yisrael, you see like they put these bricks on the side, like these stones, and then they put a giant one on top, or small, but the bigger piece on top. So the doifek is the side ones, the goylo is the top. Some say it's I think Rashi over here says it's like the cover of the aron. Okay, so when do you start Shiva? You put the cover on the aron, you put the cover on the big stone. I think Tosis is the one that says stone, and Rashi says the cover of the aron. When do you get a kapara? When you see a little bit of the decomposing body. So says Ravashi, when could you start the avelus? You start the avelus when there's a decomposing of the body. Okay, but since I pushed off the avelus a little bit until the body starts decomposing, now once I push it off. You hear? Once you push off the avelus a little bit, you push it off completely. As Rashi, but what happens when a person dies in the middle of Pesach? So you have to push off the avelus until after Pesach. You start Shiva right after Pesach. But once I push off the avelus, it should be pushed off forever. So says Rashi that when a person dies on Pesach, you're allowed to say Hamokim Menachem Eschem. You're supposed to be Menachem him on Pesach. Just can't bury him. So the avelus actually started on Pesach. By shaking over here, this guy that was killed by Bezdin, you're not allowed to say Hamakom Menachem to them. You're not allowed to be Menachem at all. And once you push off that avelus a little bit, then it's pushed off forever. So if all you need is a little bit of decomposing of the body, so just bury him like this. I apologize, but this is Gemara here, so I'm sorry. This is mamish gross. Once the body decomposes and the stomach explodes a little bit, you don't want to start messing with that body. It smells and it's really bad, says Rashi. So we just let it decompose completely, and then when you have just bones, then it's okay to rebury. Says Gemara story. They used to take a little bit of dirt from Rav's caver, around the caver, and use it as medicine. Somebody had fever, a one-day fever. So says the Gemara, so it's the problem is, first of all, Ben Ish Chai just says, why would they take from Rav's things? It says the Rav used to, after he used to eat a meal, he would eat dirt to be kind of the pasuk in the Eichel that says, "Vayagres b'chotzos shinoi." So he used to eat dirt. So Mela, the dirt had a special quality. His dirt had special quality. Amrle l'Shmuel. So they came complaining to Shmuel because I don't know if everybody knows this, but I think most people do. But I've seen people not so makpid on it. You go to Beis HaKfaris, let's say, the actual matzeva is also b'ana. Things that have to do with the dead, the tachrichim, anything that has to do with the dead is also b'ana. So like, don't put your siddur on the matzeva. It's not a place you're not allowed to use it. You're not allowed to lean on it. It's also b'ana. So what they're asking him is, isn't this dirt also b'ana? So he says, no, we have to make a distinction. Amarlu Yos Avdin. They're doing great. It's a good thing to take the dirt. You can't make dirt also b'ana. The karka olam in an Esterson. A matzeva that comes afterwards on top, that yes, but not the dirt. The Tzvi, Yeshio took the Asherah. You can't believe this. A tree was planted in the Beis Hamikdash as Avodah Zarah. So he chopped down the tree, he burnt it, and he sprinkled the ashes on the kvarim of the Jews that were over that Avodah Zarah. So Makesh Kever B'nei Am Avodah Zarah. There's a hekesh between the Avodah Zarah and these graves. Ma Avodah Zarah b'mechuber l'mitasra. Avodah Zarah that's mechuber doesn't become aser. T'chsiv asher atem yorshim oisam es elokehem es eloheihem al he'arim haram. It has to be on top of al harim eloheihem v'loi he'arim eloheihem. You cannot make a mountain of Avodah Zarah. What about the tree? How does the tree become Avodah Zarah? So that's a Mishnah Mufureshus in Mesachos Avodah Zarah, Daf Mem Vav, Daf Mem Hey, where it talks about that Asherah tree. That Asherah tree, which was planted by a human being, either for Avodah Zarah, they made it Avodah Zarah, but it had a human intervention, so that's different. But you cannot make a mountain of Avodah Zarah. So here, look, this dirt but obviously it's not the dirt from the actual caver from inside. That would be a problem. But dirt that's on top, next to the caver, is not a problem. So therefore, the dirt from the caver is not awesome. Beisvei, wow, it's an hour and 3 minutes already. The Olam in Ramat Hashem is going to get nervous now. You need to daven shachars. But we got to finish this Amud. If a person digs a grave for his father, says Rashi, it's not necessarily only his father, it means anybody. If a person digs a grave for a human being, and then they left the grave empty, they used another grave somewhere. So you cannot use this grave. So you see that the grave itself becomes asubana. What do you tell me? The graves don't become asubana. Here, something like this. I don't know, made a caver on top of the ground. It's not mechubel. It's like not mechubel lekarka. They were mechaber lekarka afterwards, but that's something else. It's not ground. That kind of thing you could make asubana. Toshma, and that's the Gemara's answer throughout. Toshma kever chodesh mutabana. A grave that's freshly dug without a dead person in it is mutabana. Hiduboy nefel, even a nefel that goes in it asubana becomes asubana. So you see that a grave itself becomes asubana. Hachanami be kever binyan. A grave that's built on top of the ground that could become asubana. Toshma nimzat ha'omer sholish kvarim. There's 3 types of graves. Kever nimtza, kever yedua, kever mazik, esorabim. What does that mean? Kever nimtza means somebody one day wakes up, finds a fresh grave in his property. Yeah, you live in Borough Park, Your front lawn, all of a sudden, there's a guy buried there. What do? You take the guy out, you kick him out. He has no right to be in there. Graves are also bano. Yeah, no, it's also bano when it is a grave, but this doesn't have a Shem grave. This is Gneva. Get out of here. Kick him out. You're allowed to take the guy out. Why? Because Chacham were geyser tum on a caver that in order that people shouldn't take people out and put them in different places all the time. But this guy had no right to be there, so there's no gzeira of Chacham. Pino, once you take the guy out, so there's nothing going on here. Since he was the kvur was without rishus, the place is tar. There's no tumah here. And what about Isra'ana? Isra'ana is Torah. The Torah says it's asbana. But since Rashi sticks in a word here, it doesn't have a shem kever. It's nothing, and that the Torah didn't make asbana. Now kever yedua. Now you gave the guy rishus to bury there. Also, you know how to just remove him. What happens if you didn't listen? Pino. So mekayim tamei vasbana. Then he becomes tamei and it's asbana. Kever amazik is a rabbin. Here, guy, this time, if you guys want to see a little video, because we have plenty of time now. I need some volume, though. The kids are no volume.
Welcome to the cemetery in the middle of the road, a stretch of concrete on County Road East 400 South in Johnson County. People toss coins onto the grave. In 1905, workers were hired to move Barnett's grave to make room for a road. The workers were met by her shotgun-toting grandson.
According to family tradition, Daniel Doty went out there and sat on the gravesite with a shotgun and said, this is where she wanted to be buried, so we'd like you to leave her here.
The workers backed down and the road was built around the grave.
A kohen can't walk by there. Which maybe I'll show you this also once we're here. Check this out. This is literally, if you ever went to Bet Shemesh, this is smack in the middle of the main street in Bet Shemesh by the Merkaz. Here, I need some volume though.
Go.
Rabbi say it's Erev Shabbos here in the center of Ramat Bet Shemesh. If I were to be standing on top of graves, I'll be tummy right now. Why? Because the tumah comes out of the ground upwards and hits me, and I become tummy. So when they were building these streets right over here, they were digging, and you're not going to believe it, they found a bunch of dead people. I'm actually standing on top of graves. So they had a very big problem. What do? How are Koyanim going to walk around there on these streets? They came up with a great idea. They closed down the street for over 3 months, and they built more than a tefach, keeping more than a tefach above the dead people. And then they also built this device right over here. Let me show you. You see this guy? This is a pipe that comes out of the graves. It's poisech tefach. It's more than a tefach wide. The tumah escapes through this. I don't want to touch under here because there's tumah there. And like this, kohanim can walk around everywhere. Even on top of the graves, they're able to walk because the tumah escapes through here and there's a tefach above the dead people. Have a wonderful week. We still have a little to go here. Wow. Why is it such a long share? Carry the Pinot. Remember when we said this? Kever mazik is a rab. You have a caver in the middle of a street. You're permitted to remove him, but Pinot become a tar. So Chachamim didn't put a tumah there. They weren't geyser tumah. Why? Because they gave you rishus to move him because it's a hezek. However, asur bahana. Okay. In Bet Shemesh, there's a community called Gelaventzits. And when I moved there was tons of Yerushalmis. They used to hire these Yerushalmis to stand there and say, no, you can't buy. Lamaisa now, there's thousands of people that live there, a whole thing. A Maisa Shahaya, the Rav Moshe Sternberg said it's not a problem. The whole psak, they found bones there, but sometimes the Asher Kedisha brings in their own bones. Ask the people. There's a lot of politics. But Rav Moshe Sternberg said it's okay. Other Gedolim said it's not. So they go to a guy. He said, "What are you doing here at Afghana? You're Yerushalmi, but you're a kohen. You're not allowed to be here." She said, "No, you don't understand. Halachically, I'm allowed to be here because Rav Moshe Sternberg said that's tar, but hashkafically, it's aser." Okay, So anyway, Zok the Gemara. So you see that a caver could be also bana. So once again, we're going back that it's a kever binyan. Sorry, asked the Gemara. But how could you? Let's say you come, you wake up in Borough Park in your front lawn. This is a fresh grave. Who told you you're allowed to take it out? Dilma meis mitzvah. Maybe somebody died right on your front stoop in the middle of the night. Somebody walked by and he has a chiyuv to bury him, and he buried him right in your front lawn. What's the big deal? The halacha is that the meis mitzvah kana mekaymai. The meis mitzvah who died, the guy died on your lawn and became his grave. Shani meis mitzvah the kali isla. Everybody will find out today. By the way, if we find a dead person, a meis mitzvah we bring him to the cemetery. But in those days, they just bury them right there where he was, and there's a coil. I don't know if I should stop here. I don't know what to do. It's so late. Yeah, we got to stop. Rabbi Sai, have a wonderful week, a wonderful day. Yishkoyach for coming. A good Birevach, or good Sunday if you're in Eretz Yisrael, whatever it is. Yishkoyach.